Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So Kingsman: The Golden Circle is the follow-up to the sleeper hit Kingsman: The Secret Service, a film that people had heard about but no one was really expecting too much, that came out to huge financial success and big critical acclaim, so they decided to make this follow-up, and this story follows Julianne Moore, who is basically the owner of this drug trade, and she is putting things inside of drugs that when someone uses them, it goes into their system and it will give them blue veins, it'll make them go loopy, and then eventually they will die. She does have a cure for it, but she is holding it hostage and trying to get the President of the United States to legalize drugs. And the people there to try to figure it out are the Kingsmen, trying to figure out what's happening. Unfortunately, Julianne Moore also recently blew up their base, killing all but two of them, which are Taron Egerton and Mark Strong. And what they need to do is they go to their American cousins, the Statesmen, and tries to talk with them and figure out how they're supposed to deal with what's going on. So as you can tell, this story clearly has a lot of subplots going on at the same time. And that was one of the biggest complaints that I had heard going into the Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Despite the trailers, which honestly were some of the best trailers I've seen all year, the film was receiving mediocre reviews, which was unfortunate. It currently has about 50% on Rotten Tomatoes or so that isn't necessarily bad, but it isn't necessarily good either. It's just kind of in the middle, and I was really wanting a lot more out of this. So I went into Kingsman sort of tentative, thinking, you know what, I might not like the movie, it might be overdone, but I'm just looking for a fun time, and thankfully, I still got that out of Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Is it flawed? Heavily, yes, and it is weighed down by the fact that it has so many subplots and there's so much going on, but I would be lying if I said that I did not at least have quite a bit of fun watching this film. I think the biggest problem that it faces is the fact that it really does nothing new. What was so great about Kingsman: The Secret Service was that while it was your traditional spy film, it was sort of a spoof on spy films at the time. And that was a very fresh concept that was very well executed. And there are so many action scenes in that movie, and so many scenes of banter and just pure moments that are absolutely excellent. Of course, you've heard of the church sequence, which is probably the best action sequence put to cinema. It's hard to really say that there's anything else that's above that, because that scene is amazing. And unfortunately, Kingsman: The Golden Circle doesn't really have a scene like that. While the first film was clever and witty, and took so many risks and did so many different things, this one didn't do too many different things. It was really just more of the same from the first one, without any scenes that were really all that memorable. They try to go for some emotional stuff, which they couldn't do in the first one because you didn't have a lot of build-up with the characters, but unfortunately, it's not very effective and it doesn't really work too well. They try to go for a bigger scope and it doesn't work too well. I think that this film does suffer from sequelitis, where the fact that the first film came before it sort of makes it so that the second film is much worse. But looking at it on its own devices, The Golden Circle is still a very entertaining movie. I found a lot of enjoyment in it. Now, I will say that I never really laughed in it, other than a few jokes that revolved around Elton John that I'm sure that you've heard of by now. A few of those were funny, but beyond that, nothing was all too funny, but it was very fun. A lot of the action scenes were very good, particularly one that happens around a 70s, or it's basically the final confrontation that happens between the two of them and Julianne Moore. That was a very fun action sequence, not necessarily anything new, but still enjoyable, and you had scenes like that throughout. Really, the thing that just kills this movie is the fact that it can get kind of stale at times, which is the last thing that you want out of a movie like this, but unfortunately, it just feels repetitive. You've seen this over and over and over again, and at this point, they aren't really going for the spoof aspect anymore. They kind of are, but not entirely. They're kind of trying to branch out and become their own franchise, and unfortunately, that's not where the roots of Kingsman were, and that sort of just makes it feel like another generic spy movie. I don't love the first movie as much as other people do. I really do enjoy it. I give it like a 7, but I do absolutely applaud the fact that it was something new while also still pertaining on being a blockbuster. So many blockbusters or big budget films like that are so weak because they're just purely copy-pasted. And thankfully that film was something different. Unfortunately, this one just abandons all the roots of that, and that hurts the franchise a lot. I think that separately, this movie might be better, but the fact that it is involved in this franchise, that it is a follow-up to a first one that was so great, that the trailers were so amazing, it's just kind of unfortunate that it turned out like this. And something that they definitely could have done that would have made the film way better is have better use of music. Because from the trailer, they used the song Generations and My Way, and both of them in the separate trailers were so perfect that I was prepared for a movie where we would get one of the best soundtracks in a film for this year. And unfortunately, that is not what we got. We got a soundtrack that was fine, but I always felt like that he could have done more with it. And I think that if you would have had that and just a few more aspects, you could have made this film more stylistic, which wouldn't have made it as stale at times. But unfortunately, this is the way that it turned out. And by no means is this movie bad. It is definitely very good, and I could recommend it if you're going out to have a fun time, but it is nowhere close to the original, which is definitely a big disappointment. I will give Kingsman: The Golden Circle a 6 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. What are your thoughts on this film, or what do you think of the original? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.